Welcome back. A flurry of activities at both the upper and lower chamber of the National Assembly this week as the 7th bicameral legislature adjourned sine die. But just before that, dozens of outstanding bills were passed into law, one of which was the Petroleum Industry Bill, an 8-year-old oil and gas sector reform document that one analyst report described as elusive. So let's bring in via Skype now, Mr. Buharis, CEO at Financial Derivatives Company. A good morning to you, sir, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Bosa.
Yes, sir. So what's your take on this 11th hour passage of the PIB by the lower house of parliament?
Time to say it's better late than never, but the reality is that the bill that was passed and amended was a bill that was sent to the House in 2008, over 6 years ago. So trying to do it in the last hour raises a lot of eyebrows and tongues are wagging. What is the purpose of it? And in any case, the terms and conditions given to the IOCs to invest in when the price of oil was $114 and when the price of oil is $63 cannot be the same. This bill needs to be amended to take out the undue powers given to the minister under that act. It has to be broken down into bits and pieces. First of all, the fiscals have to be taken out from the reorganization and restructuring of the petroleum industry domestically. And also, we need to talk about the compensation to the host communities and definition of the host communities. There are so many parts of this bill. And so a last-minute rush job does not do the bill any good.
Mr. Buharis, may I cut in quickly? From what you're saying, looks like this PIB has stayed too long on the shelf, gathered so much dust, and to some extent, does it still reflect today's reality of the global oil market?
Absolutely. The president that introduced the bill to the House is dead. The minister of the petroleum that introduced the bill to the House is dead. Their administration is over. And the subsequent administration has also left. Now, 3 administrations later, at the last minute, you're passing a bill and rushing it in 10 hours to the end of the parliament. It raises a lot of eyebrows as to why and what the rush. Why can't you just leave it for the next incoming parliament to look at it and do justice to it based on today's conditions?
The question I wanted to ask was, why do the House of Reps pass the bill? Just about 50 members present, the whole chamber looks virtually empty. Will this stand the test of scrutiny? Well, the feelers from the government is that President Buhari will still have to take another look at what has been passed. The Senate couldn't do anything about it, and there were reports that the Senate President, David Marks, said, well, unfortunately, I couldn't do anything about this before I leave this seat. That means that essentially this document would go back to the drawing board ab initio.
Yes. First of all, why the stampede? This is a bill that is, as far as I see it, dead on arrival. You have to go back and open it up, restructure it, reflect today's reality, talk to the stakeholders, that is the multinational companies, the local oil companies, the host communities, all the federal government itself, the new cabinet. So I don't see the stampede or the need for it.
Okay, let's retrace the PIB back a little bit to the late President Umaru Yar'Adua's administration. Why was this bill so difficult to get through?
No, I think, you see, oil is the mainstay of this country. It represents 80% of our fiscal revenues and 95% of our export revenues. Everybody has a stake in it. So there are things like acreages, there are things like OMLs, mining licenses, production licenses. There are things about local content laws. There are things about how the structure of NNPC should be, all of these things. So a lot of vested interest. And since oil is the mainstay of our economy, it's bound to be controversial. And like in all oil-producing countries, especially ours, it has to withstand the scrutiny, and it has to be negotiated so that there's consensus among all the stakeholders to ensure that, one, the take by Nigerian government and Nigerian people is maximized. Two, that investors are incentivized to put more money into the business so that our exploration and production rates are almost equal, so that we don't suffer any attrition. And thirdly, that everything that comes out of the oil industry is equitably distributed amongst all the stakeholders in Nigeria.
Do you think that this bill will ever be passed into law?
It will, but not in the form of which it was passed yesterday. at best, I would say the stampede to pass it yesterday was disingenuous.
Well, quite a sharp one there. It's ingenious. But let's look at this bill from another perspective, which is, yes, you want to reform the oil sector. You need to reform the NNPC. There were discussions about how President Muhammadu Buhari should proceed. Do you think, or what do you think President Buhari will do? Do you think he will focus on the PIB first, galvanize the next assembly to go through it, or do you think he will prefer to deal with the NNPC first, then come back later to deal with the PIB? Or can he do the same, both at the same time?
You don't need the PIB to reorganize the NNPC and restructure the Nigerian petroleum industry. Those are administrative things that can be done within the context of the executive powers of the president. So let's separate the reorganization and restructuring of NNPC and the petroleum industry. Let's leave that out of the PIB. The PIB basically is about the incentives to encourage oil prospecting companies and all the multinational oil companies and local companies so that they have enough stake in the game, enough skin in the game to invest. Because what has happened is that over the past 5 to 10 years, we've seen a declining level of investment. Angola last year had foreign direct investment in the petroleum sector of $14.6 billion. Nigeria had only about $4 billion. Angola is smaller than us, and definitely that's a shame. Angola is resuming LNG production next month. In fact, in July, they're resuming LNG production, and they started the LNG production plant only last year. So they now have LNG, they have oil and gas. In addition, they have diamonds and other important minerals. And what, they have a population of 25 million people. So if they can get their act together, then there's no reason why Nigeria should not be able to get its act together to reorganize. So I don't think it makes any sense to try and second guess what the president is going to do. He's familiar with this, with the oil industry. He was the Minister of Petroleum between 1977 and 79. This is right up his alley. He would know what to do, and all he has to do is to organize it the way he wants to achieve his objectives. But he knows that oil is critical to Nigeria, and we will depend on oil for a long, long time to come.
Okay, let's get back to the bill. One of the news items around this bill over the last two administrations was that it's been politicized, bogged down at the National Assembly because of politics, party politics, and all other interests. Do you think this new administration holding the legislature and the executive by the same political party will be able to fast-track this passage very quickly?
Yes, I think so. Why do I say that? Between 2008 and now, we've seen a period of increasing oil prices. So Nigeria wasn't under any pressure whatsoever. They had enough revenue to get away, to do all the things they wanted to do. But right now, we are facing a 40% decline in our oil revenues, where our currency is under pressure. Our states cannot pay salaries. We need investment dollars as well as production dollars. The production dollars cannot do it anymore. We have a new administration, and as long as the president, and I'm confident that that is what the position is setting the tone, a tone of transparency, a tone of blocking the leakages, a tone of actually being as clear as possible, full disclosure, you will find that investors will fall in over themselves to come into Nigeria, not only in petroleum, but in other areas.
A final question for you, Mr. Rwani. Do you think, in all sincerity, in all honesty here, that the international oil majors operating here really want this PIB passed into law? Is it in their best interest?
I don't think they want a PIB passed into law, but they want it on terms that are favorable to them, that will incentivize them to invest. Everybody wants to invest. But if the terms and conditions, the incentives that you have when the price of oil is $110 and when the price of oil is $60, even $50, cannot be the same. The rules of engagement are different. The basis of competition is different. And there are alternatives. At the time in 2008, there was no oil in Senegal, no oil in Ivory Coast, very limited in Ghana. Now, all of these countries, the entire Bight of Benin has oil all over the place. So our bargaining power as the main producer of oil in West Africa and the leading producer of oil in Africa, that position is threatened. We now need to do some more things. We now need to put more incentives We have gas. We require, there's a set of incentives for the gas plant. All of these things you need to talk and engage with your partners. The multinational oil companies are our partners. If you have a situation where the head of the NNPC or the head of the Petroleum Ministry is not engaging, is not even available to talk to them, then they will not be encouraged. So you have to have a collaborative attitude, not a confrontational attitude towards your stakeholders. Those are the things that the Nigerian administration has to come to terms with. We all know it, but we are in a new era now, so I think I don't need to go further. I'm confident, I'm highly optimistic that that situation has changed already.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Bismarck Rwana, CEO at Financial Derivatives. We appreciate your time and your insights into this very important discourse. Okay, let's get the conversation going. Dolapo Oni, Head Energy Research at EcoBank Development Corporation, is live here in the studios. Coming up after the break to put some flesh from a technical perspective into this Nigeria's energy crisis and the PIB as the curtain falls on the 7th Assembly. We'll be right back.